Yo, welcome back. Dante here. Today's video, I'm gonna give you my thoughts, real quick thoughts on the Colorado spring game. Um, it's a very different setup than I've ever seen in a spring game. Usually, a spring game is just a really big, open scrimmage, basically. You don't run too many plays out of your playbook. You run very vanilla stuff. But you usually have, your first offense versus first defense, second team versus second team, and and then later on, as the spring game goes on, you'll have like you'll switch it up a little bit, have second team versus first on both sides of the ball. It was very different what they did. So a few things that stuck out that they did differently. Um, the clock was ran a weird way. So I think they ran 4 quarters, right? They ran 4 quarters at 17:30. It was a weird time they used. It was like 17:30. That was like the time. That was like the game clock, but it was a running continuous clock, which is okay. That's weird because I'm not understanding the number that he chose, but um, and then they started out with like kick returns. So essentially, it was one returner, just a returner by himself. They did the regular kickoff, and I guess it was basically just to get him into the flow and just make sure that these guys are actually running down the field for kickoffs. So they did that a few times, and then they ran the offense out there. So they did first offense versus second defense, which is when I'm thinking back on it, it makes sense why they're doing it that way. Kind of to make, I guess, to show not the best of it because it's not the best. It's just what they have to show so far. But it's to make the offense look better than what they actually are. Now they may be like that, but when you're going against the second team, the first team should dominate. And the same thing on defense. The first team defense went up against the second team offense. Um, they were a little bit more successful, the first team defense, um, but that the second team offense can do some. They can do a little bit. Um, but there's a reason why they're second team and not first team. So they did that a few possessions back and forth, and then they did like just straight up like field goal kicking. So they had the kicking team up. So they had the kickers. They had everyone line up, all 11 men, kick field goals from I think like 40, 45, I think, and that was cool, I guess. Um, I'm a little concerned about Mata because there was a few of them kicks where he kicked it and it was just barely making it over the goalpost. Now it may have just been the angle I was looking at, but the angle they showed on TV, that ball hardly cleared the upright. So I don't know if he was just kind of lackadaisical when he was kicking the ball, or he just doesn't have as great of arm strength as greatest leg strength, not arm strength, that they think he has. Because they had the other kicker, and then they had Philly's kid. So if you don't know Jay Philly's son, I think it's Jace. He's on the team as a kicker, and I think they had stronger. I don't know if they had stronger legs or they just put more behind the kicks, but they seemed to clear it no problem. Like they still had probably like 5-10 yards extra they could have went. And so I'll get into the Mata thing about the kicking. So yeah, pretty much they did that. Then they ran some like skeleton. So if you don't know what skeleton is, the skeleton pass is essentially when you run 7-on-7. Um, no, that's not. Oh, sorry. not skeleton. 7-on-7. Skeleton is when you just run. You basically run seven on. You just run seven against nothing. You just run routes and you throw the ball. But they were running. They ran a little bit of 7-on-7, and then at the end of the end zone, they had the linemen running. They run their drills or whatever. Like I said, it was essentially this was more of like a really big practice than an actual like spring game scrimmage. But I think it's cool. But it's like for me, I've watched so much of the YouTube content that it was really nothing that I hadn't seen before. I've been watching the Colorado stuff since he's got there. Shoot. So I've seen all the stuff, the workouts, the practice stuff, the couple of scrimmages they already did on the practice fields. I've seen what they've done, what they do in practice. So the fact that it was televised, I was just like, okay, cool. I mean, I didn't expect a whole lot, but it was just different. I think that's about it. Then they did the second half, and then they pretty much just did it again. Now, the one thing I didn't see, maybe I wasn't paying attention, but I don't think they ever put the seconds on the seconds and the first on the first, which I don't understand why they would do that. You want to see where your team is at so far. It doesn't really help if you go against the second. It helps for reps, but like to see what you really got, you got to have the ones versus ones and the twos versus twos, because you never know. Some of them dudes on the twos, they may be ones, but because they can't really shine over the ones, they're always on second team. And the same thing with the first team. Some of them dudes on the first team may not be first team material just because the skill gap is so much closer than what they thought. And this was a good time to display it, but they didn't run it that way. So yeah, that's pretty much what they did. At the end of the game, they had like a whole little, they all huddled up in the middle of the field, and Dion, I don't think he said anything. He probably said something, but at that point, I really wasn't paying much time. He did have Cordell Stewart. He said some words, and then they had a prayer, and then that was it. That was the end of the game. So I guess it's a lot more of a spectacle than your normal spring game, which is cool. Like I said, the few things I didn't understand was the clock system. I didn't get that, and the scoring system was kind of cool. So it was kind of like a party game type style. So you score touchdowns, you get points. You got like 3 points for big plays over 20, and then there was a point for something else on offense. There was 6 points for a touchdown, obviously. 3 points for plays over 20 yards, and then I think it was 1 point or 3 point for something else. And then on defense, I think it was three points for takeaways, 6 points for touchdowns, obviously, 1 point for pass breakups, and there was one other thing. I can't remember they had on defense. Defense had 4 total ways to score. Offense had 3. And that was a pretty cool little system they had up, just to give the defense more incentive to actually score points. You know what I mean? And that was cool. One thing about Mata. So this whole time they've been filming the JSU stuff and the Colorado stuff. They always talk about he don't miss. But today, two of his kicks got blocked. One got returned for a touchdown, and another one almost. If he didn't get down there and stop and trip him up at about the 10-yard line, they'd have had two block kicks returned for touchdowns today. Which is a little concerned. Now you can say, hey, it's just practice, but they don't told you as a guy that doesn't miss if you missing in practice.
Oh,
chipped my nail. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm, I think the kicking game is going to be very important, but that's also the scariest part. I think for Colorado going forward. I think the offense will they'll be fine. They'll be able to compete with them dudes in the Pac-12. I think that they'll get enough firepower to compete. Defense, defense, I don't know. I think the way he recruits, or the way he's recruited so far, Deion Sanders, he's recruited a lot of guys with a lot of talent and speed, but not enough bulk. You know what I'm saying? And I was watching Off Script. He's a channel that he mainly does HBCU stuff, well, mainly SWAC stuff. But he talks about Colorado and Dion from time to time. And there's one thing he said when he was watching the game, he was getting like text messages from people saying the team looked really small. And when he said that, I was like, you know what? I'm thinking back on it. Uh, yeah, that is true. That team is really small. And you look at when you look like if you watch some of the well-off media videos on YouTube, that's Deion Sanders Jr. He records all the footage and puts it on the channel. If you look at them guys without the pads, right? They're all like very. They have muscle. They have mass. A lot of big dudes on the team are like real. They're just really tall. They're not really. There's a couple of them that are like statuesque, but a lot of them are just kind of like like average build. Like I'm not saying they're like weak or anything or out of shape, but like they don't look like they're Power Five built. You know what I'm saying? Especially as big men. And then when he said that, I started thinking back to all the videos with like when they finally put the pads on. A lot of them dudes are really small, like not even just like in mass, but like in height. Like a lot of them dudes are really short, which is like, wow, okay, this is this is something else. They are a really small team right now. Now they do have two tackles. I forgot their numbers, but they played in the spring game. They're on the first team offense. Them two dudes are big. Like the two tackles are huge. I'm like, wow, okay, they can do something on offense with them two tackles. They got a little bit of a running game, but like I said, they're a very finesse running team as of right now. I don't see any power backs on that roster. They all are built like scat backs, like a Darren Sproles, like a who else? They're built like what's his name from what's the guy from the 49ers? They're built like that guy. They're built like who else? I'm drawing blanks on guys. I'm trying to compare them to. But yeah, they're not built like no Ezekiel Elliott, no LaDainian Tomlinson. They're not built like them guys. They're not built like an AP. I don't see anyone on that roster that's built like them guys. So that's a little concerning. The defensive side, I think they'll be like a bend but don't break defense. But I think they have enough speed to actually at least get to the football. But I think when it gets to crunch time, when it's time to really buckle down, I don't think they'll have that physicality to actually like get the stops when they need to get the stops in certain situations. Like I said, bend don't break. They'll be like one of them teams. Essentially, what that means is you're a team that gives up. You'll give up yardage here and there, like big chunks. You'll probably be playing a lot of long drives, but at the end of the day, they won't get scored on as much as people will think they will. I think they'll end up holding them to a lot of field goals. Obviously, against the bigger teams, like I don't like a USC and Utah, especially Utah. Um, that bend don't break is not gonna work against them. Like maybe like an Arizona, Arizona State, Stanford. Who else? Who else is in the trying to think who else? Yeah, like teams like that. I don't think they're gonna really struggle against some teams as of what I'm looking at right now. They're gonna struggle against a lot of them teams. Um, but yeah, and yeah, I think that's about it. That's like the gist of it. Production wise, it was cool. We didn't get to see Ralphie run because they had a big snowfall the night before, and it took them basically all the way up until the beginning of the game to actually clear the field. There was a clip they showed during the broadcast. There was like it was like 3 inches of snow that covered the whole field, like pure white, and they had to. It literally took them all the way until it was almost time for kickoff to clear that field, which is ridiculous. They still get snow in late April. And I couldn't do it, man. That's crazy. That's just crazy. But yeah, anyway, those are my thoughts on the Colorado spring game. If you watched it, did you like it? Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it? Did you just not care? Did you think, what was the point of all this? Did you think this is very weird and different, but it's something unique and different and weird? I don't know. You let me know. But yeah, that's all I got to say. Thank you for watching, and you guys have a great one. Peace.